Welcome to the Salty Investors episode number 29. It is Friday, April 28th, 2023. And how are you on this beautiful autumn day, Tim?
Yeah, it's pretty good. What about yourself?
Yep, sun's out. We had a bit of rain, but it's sun's out today, looking good. I will be going out in the sun after this. Can't
Oh,
wait.
wow. Make sure you wear a hat there. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's starting
well,
to come out a little bit sometimes, but yeah, it's nice. Nice weather at the
yep.
moment. Yeah.
Especially when you've got a ever receding hairline, you definitely need a hat. Um, let's get on to the salt for this week. I will go first. It's a pretty simple one. According to CoreLogic, house prices are up over the quarter to March 31st this year. Sydney leading the way with a 2.7, almost 3%
Oh,
increase in house prices, and it's all about FOMO. So you can't borrow $1 million anymore, but you can borrow 850. So go out and get that house before you miss out, because prices are just going to go crashing through the ceiling. I mean, mortgage resets, don't worry about that. Inflation that's hanging around, don't worry about that. You better get in there, buy that house. It is the Australian way. It is Australia's national pastime. What do you think, Tim?
oh well, a 2% increase is like buying the dip, surely. It sounds like it at the moment. So,
Yep.
um, recession's been called off, it looks like. I've seen a couple of people buying, $1 million homes, and it's back on again. So,
Yep.
we've missed it. The whole
We
lot's.
missed it again, Tim. We'll have to wait another 20 years.
It'll come around, surely. We've just got to be patient, the patient
Yeah.
investor. But,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a bit of a. Yeah, I don't know what people are thinking. But if they, people are starting to talk about the RBA maybe lifting, coming up this
Yeah.
month. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not off the cards, but I don't know if they got balls to do that. What do you think?
Yeah, it remains to be seen. I think maybe they need a bit more impetus, but we'll get onto that in a minute, because
Yeah, okay.
we're gonna go through the inflation report. Let's get to your salt.
You might have seen the Pharmacy Guild of Australia is getting a little bit
Oh yeah,
upset that, the government's decided finally that you can have a script from your doctor that lasts 2 months instead of just 1 month of medication.
yeah,
And they also, doctors can now give you 12 months worth of scripts in one hit, so you don't have to go to the doctor every 6 months for, your cholesterol medication or something like that.
yeah,
But the Pharmacy Guild are like freaking parasites. They get the $8.50 per script, and now they're probably
yep,
only going to get it every 2 months instead of every month. And they're like saying, oh, people are going to die and the world's going to come to an end, and there's going to be shortages. But
yep.
surely that it's not self-interest here that they're going to miss out on half the amount of scripts. Yeah, I don't know. They just seem like parasites in society, and it's great to see them. You know, they're privileged. They're in a privileged situation where they can, no one else can put out scripts.
Yeah.
Got to go to these places to get your ficking drugs. So yeah, what do you
Oh
think?
no. Yeah. Well. Oh, they're going to slightly going to make a slight dent into our entrenched monopoly. How
Yes.
awful. Oh dear. I mean, yeah. I mean, Jesus Christ, it's such a rort. I mean, it's like it reminds me when I was in Japan. Um, so Japan's healthcare is heavily subsidized by the government, and dentistry. See, Japanese people notoriously had pretty bad teeth. Now, if you go to Japan, there's almost a dentist on every corner,
Okay.
because it is so heavily subsidized. You go into the dentist one week and you want a cleaning, right? And they would do the top half of your teeth and say, come back next week, but do the other half. And because they just collect money from the government, and it's really cheap for you as a customer.
Yeah.
Like it's 15, what was it? It was probably about $20 a visit or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, because they get a massive subsidy from the
Uh,
government. And yeah, it's just
Good
people,
work.
it's set up the incentives. And yeah, don't be surprised if everyone wants to be a dentist.
Yeah, good work if you can get it. Everybody loves their job to be protected by the government and make it a
Oh
monopoly.
yeah.
But
Well,
some,
everybody loves competition when they're starting a business, but once they've
yeah,
once they're on top, oh no,
yeah.
let's pull up the ladders. Yeah.
Uh,
All right. So we had CPI out this week, which was interesting. Look at if you just have a look at that chart, Tim. We don't even need to read any numbers. It's not exactly flying downwards, is it?
No. Well,
Not exactly. Yeah,
zoom
it's
out
sort
a
of.
little bit, but people are looking at the last, 3 months and going, wow, looks pretty good, the last 3 or 4 months, so,
Yeah, yeah.
but
But I mean, what did we do? We came from a 7.8 last quarter to 7. Okay, that's good. It's an improvement. We've probably peaked. But the ongoing theme we've been banging on about is that if you think it's just going to drop like a stone back to 2 or 3% anytime soon, I think you're going to be in for a bit of a shock. I mean, the trimmed mean, which is, I guess that's the US equivalent of
okay.
core inflation.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's still 6.6, down from 6.9. It's not a big drop. And actually, if you look, so this is the quarterly data. If you go and look at the monthly
Yeah.
data, it was actually it went back up again
I
in
know.
March from February. So, and we've been saying this, right? Don't expect it to go down in a straight line. It'd be sawtoothing around. And then what I haven't included here because it's just too long was that market note from John Hussman this week, who noted, look, everyone's expecting inflation to come down as unemployment goes up and economy slows. And he says there's actually no correlation. I mean, this is a guy that does his homework. You've seen the amount of data this guy
Oh,
puts into his work. And that just should, I mean, he does say, look, there are instances when
yeah.
it happened, but the only one you can really point to is the early 80s when Volcker raised the Fed funds rate to what, 18% or something,
Yeah.
which is not exactly where we are today. I mean, we're talking in Australia, we're talking 3 something, and in the US, it's closing in on 5. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
just that story of persistently higher than average inflation hanging around I think, is still there.
Yep. Early days
Uh,
still. Got a few more months to go to see. It could keep
yeah,
going. I think it's going to go down to the 4 to 5 range fairly
yeah,
soon. But
yeah.
getting underneath that, I am not too sure. Compared to
Yeah.
everybody else, the market is saying, yeah, we're going to get to that 2 to 3 range, within, 6 months. So,
Yeah, well, I mean, the RBA is not even
yeah.
saying that. I mean, they don't think it's going that low this year. So,
Uh,
but yeah, just have a look at some of the um, inside there rents. Yep. I mean, look at
uh,
year over year rent increases, and look, do you think that's slowing down anytime soon? Given like the foot's on the immigration pedal,
mhm.
and before the people out there accuse us of right wing dog whistles about immigration, it's got nothing to do with anybody's race or ethnicity. It's all to do with the fact that we know immigration goes to our biggest capital cities, Melbourne and Sydney, that puts increasing pressure on already stressed
Mhm.
infrastructure, not only housing but schools,
Roads, yeah.
hospitals, roads, yeah, just general amenities. And so I don't see that sort of abating anytime soon. And we've got home builders left, right, and centre going bust. We've got Greens in the inner city who, on the one hand, want massive investment in social housing and then are opposing high density development projects in their particular areas because that's what their
Uh,
constituents want. Of course they want building, they just don't want it where they are. It's like people who like windmills, who like for renewable energy, they just don't want them in their own backyard, but they're happy to put them on somebody else's land.
yeah.
So yeah, that's rents, and then the other one is electricity. What do you think about that graph, Tim? I mean,
Ooh.
that's a pretty interesting one, isn't it? Remember, renewable energy is going to bring down the costs of electricity. Thank God for that. It's about time because uh, apparently closing coal-fired power plants and more renewable energy leads to lower electricity prices, as you can clearly see from the graph. And if anyone is watching this for the first time, yes, I am being sarcastic.
Yeah, isn't that crazy, that graph? Like, you
Yeah.
know, poor pensioners, who are trying to, on a fixed income here, and you've got things like this, variable costs are going up. It just keeps eating and eating into that pie. Um, Very nasty. Like, so I don't know, what people are thinking, but, you know, and none of these coal-fired plants have been saved yet. like Morwell and all these others. Like they just keep
Yeah.
closing them, and they've got another couple coming. So
Yep.
doesn't seem to be getting any better. I don't. And Ukraine war, that's not going to end next week. So you
No.
can't keep blaming that for you know this sort of thing. So
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, the the upshot of all this is to say that the call that inflation is going to stay higher for longer than people think, I think is still probably the
yeah,
accurate one at this point. Um, Alrighty, so just some interesting stuff because what we've seen sort of this year and even late last year was the tech sector was the place to be. That's
yep,
where everybody ran to. They ran to it when we had this sort of mini bank meltdown, which looks like it might be on again. If you've been paying attention the last 24 hours, what's happened to First Republic Bank? But yeah, I thought this was interesting. Jesse Felder always posts interesting stuff. The IT demand pull forward amid COVID was as extreme as Y2K,
hmm
after which tech sales fell by 28% over the next 6 quarters. Today, analysts are forecasting a much shallower decline. And, maybe so, the point there is that, look, we pulled forward a lot of spend for the Y2K bug, which, I mean, I was right in the middle of that.
yeah,
It was hilarious. It was funny because I was actually working in a in a at a major broker, but my job at the time leading up to Y2K was I was in the IT area and was a data research assistant or some shit, and we had to test. Like we were worried that Excel wouldn't work anymore. All the dates would be thrown out, and all the tests we did just went what. We couldn't understand why anybody was worried about this stuff. And of course, um, I think the head of the IT department had to actually go into work on the 31st of December and wait to see what happened, and nothing. And of course, nothing happened.
yeah. Planes
And
are going to fall out of the sky. Remember that? Planes are going to fall out
yeah,
of the sky and all this sort of stuff. It's like the power grid was going to go down, and
yeah,
we're only
and it
safe because
just
they upgraded everything. I'm like,
yeah.
hmm,
So I don't know. There's probably other factors at play, but yeah, I mean, maybe tech might not be the place to hide going forward, but we shall see. Because I think we were talking last year that at Christmas last year there'd be huge sales on electronics and stuff. That might actually be this year, right?
yeah,
That I mean, there were good sales, but I think it this Christmas is shaping up as a worse time for retailers and in that kind of area than say last year. So yeah,
yeah.
look out.
I was in the Good Guys yesterday, and it was like a freaking ghost town. So I don't know, like, yeah,
Well,
got
I
heaps of.
bought a 65-inch 2022 model Samsung TV last week. Sticker price $845. Right. I suppose if you're an American, that might sound like a lot, but that's really cheap. I mean, and
Yeah,
I'm like, where are these prices coming from? But anyway,
yeah. I think,
I expect more of that stuff to come.
yep. Get your second or third TV at the end of the year, you reckon? That's what they'll be trying to do. Like, how are they going to offload all this stuff? How many TVs do you want? Like,
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, and
yeah.
maybe we've reached a point where everyone's got 17 screens in the house, and we're like, do we need another one? We need one for the toilet, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. Um, yeah, I just thought, in terms of, I don't know if you look at breadth in the stock market, which is essentially the percentage of stocks that are. There's a number of ways to measure it. So you could say the percentage of stocks that are over their 200-day moving average, or that
Okay.
are outperform. Like in this case, this one's the percentage of stocks outperforming the index, right? And it's at a pretty low level there over the last 20 years.
hmm
I mean, the point is here that your your best bull markets, your strongest bull markets are when there's the most participation by the most stocks. So you
Okay.
have 70 to 80% of stocks advancing at the same time, and you just don't have this at the moment. It's pretty weak, and it probably goes back to what we just said about tech being a lot of this,
Yeah.
holding it up. And so that's generally seen, and it doesn't mean that there's some imminent collapse, because you could go back on there and find
everywhere.
points where it looked weak but it recovered. So it's not, I'm not forecasting anything, but it generally is, it is signifying that it's sort of a weak market. It's not being, there's not broad participation by all stocks.
Wonder what it'd be like on the Russell. Like if you compared it to that instead of the S&P 500, wonder if it's got a similar type number there. But yeah,
it would be interesting because the Russell tends to lead. The Russell will go down first before, say, the Nasdaq does. Yeah. All right, I just threw this in because this is yesterday, April 27th. First Republic Bank's in turmoil, pushes stocks down 95%. And they're basically, I mean, they're publicly saying we need another lifeline. I mean, they're not, so they've had another, I think it was 150 billion go out the door in deposits. Million or billion, I forget. Probably million, because they're not that big. But yeah, so it's not over. We've sort of been saying that last few weeks, that this thing's just not, it's not just a band-aid and go back to normal. There's still people have woken up, I think, in the United States and go, oh, remember that 20-year period where we couldn't get any interest on our bank accounts? Now you can. You can actually get 4% over here, or 4.5% instead of 0.3 or whatever they were giving you. So, and yeah,
you can put it in your Apple bank account now and get 4. So I don't know what these guys are offering over at First Republic.
Yeah, well, even Commonwealth Bank's offering 4.15 or something on a. I mean, crazy stuff.
You're not looking at. You don't think it's a buy here at 95% down?
No, never touch. I mean, if I was going to do that, I should have bought Citigroup when it was $2 a share or something in 2008.
That would have been a good buy.
I didn't have the balls then.
Not going to start now.
Falling knife. I got scars all over these hands. I just don't do that. I don't play that game anymore.
Nor do
I might start play that game if the economy gets really rough and the consumer really starts pulling back. Maybe it's time to play catching knives with retail stocks. But that's I'll save that up. Because the thing, if you get a retail stock that gets smashed out, like there's a stock now, was the market darling here in Australia, City Chic, and they got caught with too much inventory. The stock's down huge, and they're working it out. But it's, if things get really bad, they're one of the sort of retailers that could go to the wall, and but you could pick it up really cheap, and then that's how you get 10, 20 baggers out of retailers like that. I mean,
within 6 months.
Yeah.
So that's
can happen.
You're not waiting for 10 years for that. So it can happen. Just
high risk stuff.
Yeah. I'm trying to change my life here a little bit.
Stuff.
I'm not trying to.
Well, it's tempting, isn't it? It's like your old drug dealer that comes around after 10 years and goes, "Hey, we got."
Remember the good times.
Not that I ever
Remember
had
the good times.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. What have we got here, Tim?
I thought I'd grow some balls and instead of go for a 10 bagger, try and go for put a bag hold together of 5 stocks here. So last week we brought the 10 that I would hold for 5 to 10 years. And I thought, a lot of names here that are sort of, you pointed out, a little bit cyclical. This Copart and, NVR. I'm like, even though they haven't been in the past, there's possibilities of that. So I've been racking my brain. I think I've got 4. So I've got MasterCard, Amazon, Microsoft, which is a bit iffy now. It's jumped up to $300 a share. I did that before this. It's like, wow, that wasn't too badly priced. And now S&P Global, but that 5th one, I just can't pick what to put in there. Just L'Oreal is like the stock to hold, as you can see here, it's 113 years old. If there's any stock that you'd want to hold, that would have been the stock of the century to hold, if you could hold it.
Right.
But so I want to get to 5 because, going 4 at 25% rating, like I could do it. I'm trying to do next sleep here, but he went Amazon, Costco, and Berkshire. And so I'm like, oh, I don't know if I could hold Berkshire. Like, it's just fairly highly priced, and they just can't invest capital. Like, yeah, if we get a big crash here, Buffett's just going to come out swinging, and he's going to look like, he's going to really light the world on fire here. But if we don't get that big crash, he might not be able to be sitting on that capital for another fucking 10 years. And I don't know what Greg's like, Greg Abel, the vice is going to be taken over, and I just, don't know how well, I know Buffett and Munger love him, but do they really trust him? So what are your thoughts, on going back to 5? Or should I stick to 10?
I don't know. I mean, what's the rationale for going to 5? You just want it more concentrated to get a better outperformance, is that?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm not mucking around the stuff that I think will do well. Like, but I want to be into that more guarantee zone, that like. But if I stuff it up here with one name, I'm really hurting. So
yeah. Well, that's the trade-off, isn't it? I mean, I mean, I don't know. I have my doubts about Amazon.
Okay.
Just not great returns ever. They've never had great returns on capital, like the others in this group. It's always been, we just fund everything through our increasing revenue growth. We're cash flow positive. We don't need to raise capital, which is good. I'm saying that's a positive, but they've never actually made great margins or anything, have they? It's just a volume game. Smash it through, except for your Amazon Web Services. It's a different type of business, but
yeah. But from Amazon, it's a bit harder to see. Like, they put 75 billion or something into R&D. So that's what makes it so look like a terrible return on invested capital type, return on capital type business, is because so much of it's plowed into R&D. And like, they could stop that, and then they wouldn't need to worry for another 5 to 10 years, I think. But
do you want to invest in something that's hard to see, where the returns are hard to see? Or do you want to invest where you can see them and they're easy to see?
Yeah.
Because I mean, it works both ways, doesn't it? I mean, it's an option, really. This R&D will pay off somewhere big time, or it doesn't, and then they can eliminate the R&D and go back to being a more profitable company. But I mean, I'd probably, if I was constructing 5 stocks, I'd probably get rid of that one myself.
Okay.
But don't ask me I'd replace it with.
Yeah, it's super hard. Like, you're racking your brain for freaking hours trying to make this work.
I would probably, if I had to pick from your grouping, I would probably stick FICO in there over Amazon, to be honest.
Oh wow.
But again, we're only talking quality here, and then we've got to have a look at price, and what FICO's done recently. So, how do you?
But yeah, like, that's what I'm saying. It has to have a collapse here. So that's what my idea is thinking. Like, if a big collapse happens, what names am I going to have the balls to go into? Because I can look out 5 to 10 years, and I know they're going to be there, and I know that they're going to be strong. What everybody thinks they're going to do is like, oh, I'm going to buy this, when it collapses and the whole world looks terrible. But, is this company going to be, still profitable in 2 to 3 years' time? It never looks good. Like, after a crash, it never looks good after, So that's what I'm trying to do, trying to actually pick names now, which I'll be, in a huge crash, I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to wait it out 5 years, and I'll be, but, like, very hard thing to do, obviously, but.
Yeah. No. Let's move on. So you want to have a bit of a closer look at L'Oreal?
Yep. So you can see all the brands they hold here, like, Garnier, like Just it's
Oh
a number
wow, I
one.
didn't realize they had that many of those. That they God, there's Jesus, they've got Armani, Ralph Lauren, and
Uh,
Saint Laurent,
just like and
Maybelline.
yeah,
Wow,
oh yeah, Maybelline, like and Armani, like they've just got so many. The top cosmetics,
Diesel, yeah,
yeah, cosmetics provide.
Lancome,
Yep,
yeah,
it just keeps going. And they just been performers. Like I said, it's 113 years worth of history here. You've got, you know,
yeah,
there's a thing called a depression in the middle of that, like a freaking depression, not recessions that we know about. Like this is like fully Ray Dalio type freaking. I'm going to get through
yeah.
this crap. And the normal thinking is, oh yeah, lady's going to pull back on, makeup in a recession.
Mm.
Well, yeah, but
But
it's
isn't
shown.
that
Yeah.
one of those myths that they actually
Yes.
don't? It's kind of like almost like a staple. You don't actually pull back on that stuff.
Yeah, well, making yourself feel good and a little bit of luxury, this is
Mm.
where it is. Like, um, and how many countries this is in? This is like in double the amount of countries of Estee Lauder. Like this is like insane the amount of reach they've got. And
Yeah.
just in the customers' minds, like they're not going to go, oh, I'm going to go into a cheap type of lipstick or whatever. They it's just one of these companies that you just overlook because you're a freaking guy. Like
Yeah.
you don't understand it fully, but you understand why ladies, are so enamored with these brands, and they cannot give them up. Like they will go to work just to pay for this stuff. Like
Mm.
it's like we don't understand it, but that's what happens, and it's been proven through depression. So yeah, you look at the numbers. Look, they're not buying back a huge amount of stock here.
No.
It is expensive, but this is again waiting for a crash. But it
Hmm.
should halve from here. Like the market in the GFC, it halved, went down 40 to fifty
Oh, did
percent.
it? Yeah. Yeah.
But you should see it come out of that. Like it was strong, like very
Mm.
strong coming out of it. So that's what I'm looking for. And then you got return on invested capital. You got your 20s here, so that's probably going to halve in a GFC type event. But you look at
Yeah.
these margins, like the operating margin's a bit scrappy, but yeah. So that's the only thing, and they've got a little bit of debt as well. So if you go over to the next page, you'll see. Yeah, so they've got
Yeah.
3 billion of debt, but like they're pulling in 5 billion with a free cash flow a year. So nothing that could
Yeah.
really
So
get out of
that,
control. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, their free cash flow is basically enough to pay down their debt for a year, isn't it? I
Debt.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah. They could just about pay off their debt with their free cash flow. Are they paying dividends?
Yeah, I think so. Not much, but
No.
yeah, like it's just one of those ones that just I forgot to put that on there, but yeah, it's just going to tick on through, and I just don't see this falling over. Like it's not like there's going to be a revelation in VR is going to make makeup obsolete. I still think ladies will be out there to impress. So
Is that so? Because you would think that your apparel stuff, your Armani
yeah,
and
that's
your
going to get hit. Yeah.
Yves Saint Laurent, that's the stuff that's cyclical. But is that? I would assume that the makeup and the face creams and all that is a bigger percentage of the
Yes.
business than the
Yeah.
apparel, right?
Yeah. Way bigger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And it makes sense as well. Like you know, you buy an Armani bag, it should last you 20 years. Or
yeah, yeah.
some luxury goods, they should last you 5 to 10 years. Well, lipstick
Yeah,
or
well, but see, I think that's the wrong way to think about it because
okay,
you're thinking like a guy again. Because I remember my ex-wife when a new Coach bag came out. It's not about
okay,
how long it lasts. It's there's a new one out, and I like the look of it.
okay.
You and I, that's what we buy a pair of joggers, and we're like, well, that'll get me 2 years at the gym, those. Whereas some people think, well, there's a nice new design out now. I want
Yeah,
those. So, yeah, not everybody's as big a tight ass as we are,
no, no,
especially
no.
when it comes to luxury brands.
Yeah, yeah. So, but it's still a small part, like I think. So I'm not too worried about that part. But you need a reason for the stock to go down so you can pick and
Yeah,
buy it. And people will look at that Armani stuff is just going to look like trash if we get a hard landing here, and like that's just going to be
Yeah.
super trashy. But I'd love if they'd spin that crap off. You know, for me, why are you buying
Yeah.
this crap? Like, why are you? You know, for me, but that's just my personal preference. But yeah, so I don't know. Another one I'm. So you see, I added into my 5 stock portfolio. So that's how.
Yep.
And
Yep.
FICO, the company I love, got
That's
axed.
pretty impressive because it didn't make it into your 10 stock
No.
portfolio, but it made it into your 5. So it just leapfrogged in there.
Well, Estee Lauder is the number 2,
Yeah.
but it's the number 2. If you want to go super quality, you got to pick the number 1. Like
Yep.
the number 1 that's been number 1 for 100 freaking years. So
Yeah.
can't be cheaping about it, you know. When it crashes, you got to take the very best. You don't go bottom bashing here. So that's what I'm gonna have. Yeah, I just don't think I'm just worried I'm gonna be weak when it finally does crash. There's gonna be a moment of weakness, and I'll just freaking sit there and suck my thumb and won't do anything. So yeah.
No. Well, there you go, folks. Tim's bought the goods again with L'Oreal. Stick that one in your quality shopping list. We will definitely be going shopping when things get cheaper, if things get cheaper ever. Yeah. But anyway, thanks for that. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks, Tim, and we will see you all next time.